Hey everybody, welcome to part 3 of the Magic of the Golden Dawn, wherein we shall be covering Enochian magic. Now I want to make mention of a couple things. Obviously it's been a long gap between Golden Dawn video part 2 and part 3. What can I say? Sometimes my energy just goes in other directions and I have to go with it. I'd rather make you wait or not give you the video at all than give you a half-assed version of it. Now I want to start off with a history of Enochian magic. Now, traditional Golden Dawn teachings in the matter are a little patchy and leave a lot to the imagination because in the fine year of 1889, when MacGregor Mathers first started disseminating what he knew of the matter, the handful of manuscripts he had were pretty much the only ones that were known to exist. A lot more has been discovered since then, and a lot of scholastically and academically oriented people have published some fine work on the subject, so we have a somewhat more sophisticated understanding of where this stuff came from. Now, we have to start with a fellow by the name of John Dee, who was the court astrologer and occasional espionage officer to Queen Elizabeth I back in the mid-1500s. He was widely renowned as the most educated man in Britain and possibly all of Europe. His house had the largest known library collection in Western Europe at the time, and he was obviously an astrologer but also an alchemist and practiced angel magic, the invocation of angels. Now, there's been speculation that he might have inherited a well-developed tradition of angelic magic that had existed in Britain at the time. However, to the best of my knowledge, the documents that that theory was based upon have since been found to be forgeries generated at the turn of the 20th century. So we still don't know for a fact where he came up with the methods that he originally used to call out to these angels. What we do know is that he did record his workings in detail, and he made use of a scryer named Edward Kelly. Now, Edward Kelly was the opposite of Dee in many ways. He was not educated, he was not wealthy, he was not well connected. He was a felon and a con artist. And he had had his ears cut off as a result of a court sentence at one point in time. Now, he supposedly had the ability to see and speak to spirits. And John Dee needed a seer for his workings. He would do the ritual and invocation, and he had a large crystal ball, which they called the shoe stone, or the show stone, but shoe stone, that Edward Kelly would gaze into and be shown things while the voice of these angels would speak to him. Dee would do a lot of things, though, because he didn't trust his felonious friend, and he would put him to certain tests to see if this knowledge was actually being channeled from an outside source or whether Edward Kelly was just making it up off the top of his head. Pages long of invocations in an unknown language, along with word-by-word translations. Dee would write it all down. Kelly was illiterate. John Dee would wait 6 months, tell Edward Kelly that he had lost the manuscripts and had to ask the angels for the 19th key all over again. And so he would recite verbatim what sounded like a gibberish language with a verbatim translation identical to what had been generated 6 months earlier. So either he was a radical genius, or he was being spoken to by something else, or he and Dee were both fabricators. I like to go for the middle option, and my experience with the Enochian system of magic has led me to believe that if nothing else, what they left behind is potent. So, what did these angels reveal to these two gentlemen? A lot, and it's complex material. I'll break it into the 3 categories I'm most personally familiar with. First is a system of evocation based on what's known as the Sigillum de Ameth. The Sigillum de Ameth, or the True Seal of Heaven, or the True Seal of God, however you want to look at it, is a sigil made with a series of interlocking septograms, or 7-pointed stars. And into this geometric matrix are poured a number of divine and angelic names, derived from 7 planetary archangel names and put through a number of geometric kind of transmutation squares to derive new orders of angels. There are 4 primary orders of these planetary angels, along with additional god names and powers included in this sigillum de Ameth, which would be carved in wax with a shoe stone placed atop it, as well as identical wax seals beneath the feet of the table, with additional procedures and whatnot to initiate contact with the angels. Now that aspect is not well covered in the Golden Dawn material as far as I'm familiar with it, and I'm not an expert on that part of it myself. I've researched it and I have experimented with it, and I found it to be, whew, zinger. But I'm not going to get into a whole lot of detail on it right now. Second element that's better explored in the Golden Dawn system is the invocation of the Aethers. The 30 Aethers, as they were revealed, were 30 layers of reality which through appropriate preparation and invocation you could directly experience. A shedding of this reality and moving through into higher realms of reality. The Golden Dawn explored this quite a bit. They didn't write as much about it. The most popular publication of anyone's personal exploration of the 30 Aethers can be found in Aleister Crowley's The Vision and the Voice, which I believe is also included in the volume Gems from the Equinox. Definitely an interesting read, very Crowleyan, obviously. Now, the part best explored in the Golden Dawn is the 4 elemental tablets and the tablet of union which unites them. Now, these were dictated letter by letter, and once the squares are formed, geometric patterns applied to these squares give you divine names as well as archangelic names and servient angelic names, cherubic and so forth. And this is widely explored within the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. The god names used at the 4 quarters during the Watchtower ritual, for instance, are drawn from the elemental tablets. The elemental tablets in the traditional initiations are presented one in each initiation, beginning with the earth tablet, then the air tablet, water tablet, and fire tablet in 4 progressive initiations. It would be kind of a big deal. You come in blindfolded, hoodwinked, and it's pulled off of your eyes while light shines on this artistically rendered tablet where the colors kind of flash because when you pair opposite colors on the color wheel a certain way, it gives you a cool optical effect. So in the course of the initiation ceremony, the revealing of these tablets is kind of a big psychological impact. And then, of course, the actual evocation of these spirits, these angels, to talk to them, to use them in your magic, to use them in your spells, to seek knowledge from them, is a central element of the work of the Golden Dawn. And within Golden Dawn ritual, we find certain excerpts from these calls are included in the ritual, but in a different context. It's integrated. The Enochian magic is integrated into a Kabbalistic, astrological, and alchemical comprehensive style of magic. And in my way of viewing it, and this is very much a Regardie way of viewing it, Israel Regardie was the first one to go public with the Golden Dawn material, some 40, 50, 60 years after the original group had come together. And so he has a certain stance on these things. And it's a little more innovative, influenced by his education in psychology and just the time period he was in. Different branches of Golden Dawn lineage interpret the same information very differently, but I've come to agree with the Regardie school in a lot of dimensions, particularly in that the raw power that you get out of the Enochian system provides a strong beating heart to an overall practice of ceremonial magic and technique that might be very difficult or not seem to yield a lot of fruit at first. As you incorporate the Enochian material and make that part of your magical worldview, other elements of your magic start to come to life in new ways. It's very much the knowledge itself, regardless of whether you're practicing it in a Golden Dawn context or looking for a purely Enochian system or working it in regards of Thelema or even incorporating it into a well-educated practice of Wicca or other forms of witchcraft. the Enochian material itself is a form of initiatory knowledge. And that's how the angels described it in their discourse to Dee and Kelly. Now, they said it in a slightly, what might be considered a creepy way. They said that their purpose was to hasten the coming of the apocalypse. And that by giving this angelic knowledge to humans, every human who used this knowledge would be tapping into the divine realms and further separating the veil and making it more permeable for divine energy and physical matter to interact. Now, if you're someone who literally believes in the book of Revelation and that there are going to be giant horses in the sky killing everybody, that sounds really scary. But when you look at the Bible from a Kabbalistic or mystical perspective, and you realize that this apocalypse is talking about an inner transformation, it's a huge metaphor of radical transformations that the soul goes through in the attainment of Christ consciousness. And so these angels bringing this knowledge to hasten the apocalypse, it's knowledge that's to hasten your own deepening communion with the eternal soul of the universe. And by spreading it, you're also hastening the ascension of our culture from our primitive and savage origins to whatever hopefully great things we're trying to turn it into. In spreading this knowledge freely, of course, we are aiming to promote the growth and development of a more positive, more harmonious, more connected, and ultimately more blissful life here on Earth. Alright, let's go ahead and zoom in on the tablet of water here. Now, I've chosen the tablet of water because it's obviously traditionally associated with psychic insight and emotional connection, which, in the context of a video presentation, want to maximize those impacts as much as we can. As you can see here, this is poorly colored. What you want is a very brilliant blue with the orange lettering and colored in such a way that with orange and blue being opposite on the color wheel, you're looking for kind of a weird flashing effect that almost is kind of weird to look at. I did not quite achieve that here. So when you make your own tablets, do better. So in any case, we have a series of squares within a larger square. We have 12 squares across, 13 tall. Now, this central line here provides you with the most important God name, the highest God name of this particular tablet. God, this information is so dense to present. Now, the central cross with this single white line in the middle and the two vertical white lines, these three lines are kind of the first important element to understand. So on the left-hand side, we have the Lineae Patris, then we have the Lineae Filioque, and the Lineae Spiritus Sancti. Now, I'm sure my Latin is awfully garbled. I just don't hang out with the kind of people who speak Latin, unfortunately. So you'll have to forgive my abject ignorance of the correct pronunciation. In any case, so when we read the Lineae Spiritus Sancta, when we read the line of the Holy Spirit horizontally from left to right, we get three central God names of the tablet of water. So, and it's interesting because there are three separate names and they go 3 letters, 4 letters, 5 letters. Now, I haven't read anything specifically calling this out, but I imagine I'm not the first to have observed that 3-4-5 ratio is the same ratio of your Pythagorean triangle. If this is 3 inches long, this is 4 inches long, your hypotenuse is 5 inches long. So that 3-4-5 principle ties the geometry of your elemental tablets back to the geometries of Pythagoras. So take that for what it's worth. In any case, you get a lot of strings of consonants, like MPH. Now, the Golden Dawn had an interesting way of addressing this, and different practitioners have addressed it differently over the ages. But what they would do is look at the corresponding Hebrew letter, and if it was two consonants like MP, what would you do? Mp. They would say, well, the Hebrew letter M is said mem. So they would go meh, and then P is peh in Hebrew, and H is hey. So it would be mepehe, is how they would say that. Now, I started off going through all of that and figuring out how to say things along that formula. Since then, I've innovated a little bit, mostly just based on what feels and sounds good, and that actually seems to work a lot better for me. In any case, the central three names, read in order, Mepehe Arsal Gaio, are also the three god names that are used in the Watchtower ritual. In that ritual, you start with a little verse ripped off from the Chaldean oracles when you're summoning water. You take your cup, you dash it 3 times to the west, and then you circumambulate once, saying something along the lines of, so therefore first the priest who would govern the fire must sprinkle with the lustral waters of the loud and resounding sea. You would use the cup to trace a invoking water pentagram in the west, and then you would recite this central god name, Mepehe Arsel Gaio. Now, in the traditional Golden Dawn way, you have to say these words in the most boring way imaginable. You want to get vibration up in the mask, up in your nasal mask, almost like an opera singer, so you don't have to make a lot of volume to get it to vibrate your whole head. So it would be like, Mepehe Arsal Gaio, or something like that, really boring and Wicked Witch of the West sounding. My personal preference, of course, is to say things dramatically rather than boringly. So I would say it's something along the lines of, so therefore first the priest who would govern the works of fire must sprinkle with the lustral waters of the loud and resounding sea. Empehe Arsa Gaio, spirits of water, adore your creator. Something along those lines. You can improvise, you can innovate. I don't know if I've presented the entire Watchtower ritual to you guys before. It is online in abundant sources. Look it up. Practice it. It's awesome. Pick a format that works well for you. Don't pay too much attention to whatever dickheads say that either the Watchtower isn't real or their version of it is the most correct. It was designed by Israel Regardie based upon the Golden Dawn Adeptus formulae, but is not a traditional Golden Dawn practice. For solitary practitioners, it's a necessary practice. We've covered this central god name, Mepehe Arsel Gaio. The secondary, or the second most important name within this tablet, is the name of the elemental king, which is attributed to the sun. Now, as you can see, from the center of our cross here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 arms. There are 7 traditional planets, so we have a central name attributed to the sun, along with 6 more names attributed to the other 6 planets. Planets, of course, in the ancient sense, simply meaning things which wandered across the sky or did not maintain their position in relation to the fixed stars, so the sun and moon were both considered to be planets. Now, the name of the sun, the king name of the tablet, is taken by starting over here and creating a clockwise inward spiral. So Raagiosl. Ragiosol. Something like that. Now, what we see is the clockwise inward turning spiral. And in my experience, when you're invoking, if you use a clockwise inward spiral as you speak the king name and try to radiate the energy through your hands with the spiral and your voice through that spiral as if you're opening a portal to draw or call out to this king, you're going to get some good results. Now, as far as how the seniors are attributed to the planets, and again, this is a very Golden Dawn element of the whole thing. Attributing to the seniors to the planets was not as central to the original work. I'm not sure if it was even part of the original John Dee material. But somehow, the Golden Dawn came up with the idea that we have Moon, Venus, what is it? Moon, Mercury, then Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. How does that work? Could be of some importance depending on what you're doing with it. Pick up Rigardi's book, The Golden Dawn, and take time to read through the little section on Enochian and draw notes all the hell over it, because it does not do a great job of describing it. Or find a better book than that. I'm basing this off a lecture I attended for like $5 and then went and read through the Golden Dawn book to verify it and then started experimenting with it. It's amazing how a little bit of information, if it's the right information, can spawn a whole new direction in your magical workings. In any case, so what we're looking for is 7-letter names, okay? So we start down, up, and that gives us 7 letters in both directions. Now on the central line, though, we have 12 letters in a row. So instead of going from the middle out, we actually cross over and go out. Okay, so in that case, our senior of Mars would start LSRAHPM. What would that be? La Sera Hepeme. La Sera Hepeme. That'd be a decent rendering of it. Okay, so those are the primary names that we get from this central cross with our line of the Father, line of the Son, line of the Holy Spirit. Now we get into the sub-elements. Okay? Now if you notice, the lettering in each quarter is a little different, and it follows the same elemental format found in our pentagram ritual, to where we have earth on the bottom left, fire on the bottom right, air on the top left, water on the top right. So we have blue on the whole tablet because it's a tablet of water. Down in the earth section we use black, red for fire, yellow for air. Then water of water, we go for that opposite color on the color wheel, so we use orange lettering. Blue and orange being opposite on the color wheel. And again, you're looking for that flashing color effect. This is a really badly done tablet of water. I apologize for that. The top name in color is your cherubic name, and then you have 4 servient angel names, and then you have what's called a Calvary cross with the divine names that govern that subquarter. Alright? So if you were to try to invoke an angel within the subquarter, the water subquarter of the water tablet, you would start with a name from the Tablet of Union, which I'll cover later. Then you would go to your divine name of the quarter, your king name, quite possibly a planetary senior, depending on the nature of your working. Then you would go to the names of the Calvary Cross, and then you would invoke and command your servient angels or your cherubic angels. Okay? Sorry, I just had to dig back into the book for a second to remember. Alright, so it's by the vertical name that you call them, and by the horizontal name that you command them. So in your ritual context, you'd start with your opening rituals, your Tablet of Union, then you would move to your God name and King name of the entire elemental tablet, and then you would call whatever cherubic or lesser angel by this vertical name from the Cavalry Cross, and then in giving each command you would invoke your horizontal name. Okay? So that's your basic formula for summoning these angels. And you can dig into some of the old books to come up with traditional invocations or evocational spells. Evocation, of course, being to call it to manifestation within a mirror or a glass or within smoke, or simply open to your astral vision if your third eye is well developed. Invocation, I don't know if I would necessarily recommend you directly invoking these kinds of creatures unless you are in a place of amazing faith and relationship with them. But invoking could also be used in a different context of not calling them into yourself, but invoking them for a spell, calling on their power to support your intention. Okay? Now, let's look at something slightly different, but equally important. This really hideously badly done rendition of the Tablet of Union. The colors are all off. I am so sorry. This is what I get for trying to slam it out in watercolors in like 20 minutes. Do a better job, people. I didn't even get the color combinations right on half of it. So I'm going to gloss over that a little bit here and say that the original whole tablet is all four of the elemental tablets laid out with an additional string of letters connecting them. That's what was shown to Dee and Kelly in the original manuscript, and by compiling those letters together, we get a 4x5 square that's called the Tablet of Union. Okay? The top name is attributed to air, then water, then earth, then fire. So we have Exarpe, Hekama, Enanta, Bitoan. Alright? So for our Tablet of Water here, before invoking Empehe Arsel Gaio, in the cause of trying to make contact with any of these entities, first you're going to want to invoke the water name of the Tablet of Union, which is Hekama. Okay? Now, other names can be derived. Because there are 5 letters, we have spirit, air, water, earth, fire over again. So there's a spirit of all 4 elements. There's an air of all 4 elements. There's a water of all 4 elements, an earth, and a fire of all 4 elements. And so there are a lot of names that you can use to derive various powers from this systemized way of dissecting the universe and interacting with the conscious forces which drive it, which is what this whole system is all about. Okay? Ekama me pehe arsel gael, ra giosol, ome bebe, nelarpe, nelaper. There we go. So, it takes a while. Each ritual, no matter how many times you've practiced with the Enochian system, is going to require a lot of study and preparation because you want to pull it off smoothly. You want it to be able to roll off of your tongue. Even when you're doing the Watchtower ritual, there's a nice dense chunk in there. O el sanu varsaji gohoiata balata el exarpe komananu tabitoem. You want to be able to just roll it off because these syllables, as the vibration of them is rolling through your head, rolling through your brain, rolling through the air around you, combining with your visualizations, combining with your physical actions, combining with the burning of the incense and the use of the ritual tools, combining with the blessing with water, this overall comprehensive effect is what part of what allows you to permeate the veil of Parakit that we've talked about in our discussions of the Kabbalah, to permeate it and move into the realm where you can directly interact with the individuated manifestations of the central forces of the universe. Now, due to my beautiful ability to garble the shit out of things, I'm going to have to go back and readdress the calls and the aethers, because we're talking about 2 different things. One of the calls is for the invocation, or rather the opening up of the 30 aethers, or Aries, as they're sometimes referred to. The first 18 keys, though, are attributed to the Tablet of Union and the 4 elemental tablets and the subsections thereof. I'm not going to recite all of the attributions for you. In the Golden Dawn, as well as in Crowley's Vision and the Voice, or whichever book it is that precedes it in the Equinox, and in a lot of other sources, you'll see the attributions of the 18 calls to the various pieces of the elemental tablets and the Tablet of Union, and that will give you a very good starting point for how to incorporate larger chunks of Enochian language discourse into your self-created ritual work. Now that 19th call is an interesting one. It's numbered 0 also. Same way the Fool is numbered 0, even though it's really the first card of the major arcana in the tarot. The 0th aether, or the 19th aether, the 0th call, or the 19th call, whichever way you want to look at it, is recited ritually. It can be done in a meditative trance. It can be used in a lot of different ways, depending on whether you're trying to use a looking glass or whether you're attempting to actually attain out-of-body astral projection into these realms, which is of course, a much more challenging procedure, which I have not yet attained. In any case, then each of the 30 Aries have a name which is woven into that invocation. So the main way that I've approached this is very similar to how you do path working with the tarot cards, to where you imbibe all of the imagery and then you let your mind play it out. It's kind of like a half-assed lunar version of true seership, to where true seership you're going to experience complete immersion. The moon reflecting the light of the sun back to you, using your mind as the mirror to reflect the information of the Aethers or the Aries that you're looking at without entering into, is kind of an intermediate level of exploration of this material. Now, for all of that, a lot of people might be a little disappointed to think, oh, all of my workings with these Aries might just be kind of a visual thing or an experiential thing that doesn't actually transport me to another dimension. Doesn't mean it's not worth your time to do. A lot of information will come through that type of lunar scrying. And that will, of course, open the door to more direct forms of scrying. And if you develop the astral projection skills, the zeroth call as the opening to the Aries can certainly be pursued from there as well. But yes, the first 18 calls are how you put together additional elements of spell work for many, many different kinds. Now, the Golden Dawn attributes purposes to a lot of these cherubic and servient angels, like types of spells that they would be traditionally used for, and most of the Golden Dawn attributions are derived from John Dee's material, and they're not very creative. A lot of repetition of like find lost treasure and such. So, you know, you can look at those, but I urge you to get creative. I urge you to look for a more modern insight into what these spirits can bring into your life. I should also make mention of the fact that if you take the appropriate letter from the Tablet of Union and place it before the names of your cherubic or servient angels, what this does is it creates a name that's archangelic in quality. Now, you may have noticed that from the divine name, the king name, the seniors, the cherub, and the servient angels, there are no archangels in this whole paradigm. You get the archangel names by taking the cherubic and servient angels and adding from the Tablet of Union. So, from the water name of the Tablet of Union, we have air of water. That's C. So if we're looking at these air of water angels, we add the letter C before the angel's name to get the cherubic archangel Katead, or however you want to say it. Okay? Alright, so let's go ahead and wrap this up a little bit. I want to say that the realm of Enochian magic is open to almost infinite exploration. Now, while the original Dee material does have a lot of suggestion for use, and some of his practices are recorded, most of what he did was just the summoning of them and the talking to them, and getting the original system, and that took years. So, as far as what to do with that system, it's not really explicitly spelled out in most of the Dee material. Now, the Golden Dawn was one of the first groups to make a significant attempt at deriving a complete working system from this material, and other traditions and other groups have made their own innovations. But the very interesting thing that I have found is that the sincerity of your practice and understanding that you actually are attempting to interact with very real individual spiritual beings that have basically given us a Rolodex of how to get in touch with certain members of their order or their spiritual cadre, however you want to think of it, that they're real beings that are beautiful and powerful and radical and want to teach us. When we are working with this material, when we are experimenting with it, we are calling out to something which is not entirely human and which presents itself to us as a way of aiding and accelerating our spiritual growth, our magical initiations, and our ultimate comprehension of divine truth. So, as you research this, you'll of course run into some very opinionated people in a number of different directions. I urge you to remember that it's not the opinions of those people that matter in the practice of the Enochian form of magic. What matters is whether or not you have the open heart, the open mind, and the open eye to successfully make contact with these benevolent spiritual creatures that we call angels. With that, my friends, I wish you love, light, peace, and abundance. Hail and farewell.